Good afternoon, everyone. This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. And today I have Monique Nolly. She is a cancer survivor, and we'll be talking about her journey through this disease. All right. Good afternoon, Monique. How you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fine. Okay, first tell us a little about yourself.
Well, I'm currently an educator. I am an author, cancer survivor. I'm also a mother. That's basically it about me.
Okay. What kind of cancer were you diagnosed with?
Stomach cancer.
Okay. What emotions were you experiencing when you heard your diagnosis?
I kind of, at that moment when I experienced my diagnosis, when I was told and informed, I kind of blacked out a little bit. It
Mhm.
was like an outer body experience. I was there, but I was not there. Being told that you can't really explain to anyone how you feel unless they've actually gone through the process, and then
Mhm.
plus they've actually gone through that, because we live in a world where when you hear the word cancer, you automatically think death. You don't think surviving. You automatically think, okay, how much time do I have left? So when I was told that that's what I had, I was kind of in denial about it.
Mhm.
And I went on in order to, because I'd had previous surgeries. So my response was, okay, I knew they were going to have to do surgery. My response was, okay, when you go in, can you fix this? Can you fix this scar that I had from the last surgery? So that was basically my reaction to it, which was not, a normal reaction. I wasn't upset. I didn't cry or anything. I was in basic denial about it. It
Oh,
wasn't until later on that the emotions set in.
okay. How did you go by telling your family?
The only people I told were my mother and my father. I did not tell my daughter. I didn't want her upset about it, so she didn't know anything about it until basically after the fact. She just knew that I had something wrong with my stomach and that I needed to go in and get it fixed. She didn't know anything about it until after I knew that I was in the clear and that I would not put her through any extra emotional stress that she had already witnessed with me previously being hospitalized. My parents, neither of us ever cried in front of one another. I don't even recall crying because I didn't have the time to cry. It's
Mhm.
it's one thing when you don't have any children, but when you have children and you're faced with something like that, the first thing you think about is them. And
Mhm.
my reaction was trying to protect her and her emotional state. So there was no crying going on my end. And I presume that was the same way my parents were feeling. They didn't want me to feel any more afraid than they knew I probably already felt. So there
Mhm.
were no tears from their end. Everybody basically just stood their ground, continued to be strong, and said, okay, what are the next steps? What do we need to do next?
Oh, okay. I know this is a sensitive subject, but can you tell us a little about the chemo?
The chemo, they actually put me on pills, which almost killed me. With the pills that they put me on, since the type of cancer that I had was extremely rare, they assumed
Mhm.
that they could shrink the tumor with, I think it was Gleevec, the chemo pills.
Mhm.
So I got on them. I was on those for about 3 weeks. And within that 3 week period span that I was on those pills, I had dropped a good 50 pounds. I was bedridden. I wasn't able to get out of the bed, didn't go to the restroom. My body was basically shutting down. My organs were shutting down. I could actually feel them shutting down. And I couldn't even get out of the bed. So my mother, who was of course taking care of me at that particular time, she noticed that I had lost a lot of weight. I wasn't even going to the restroom to urinate or anything because I couldn't eat anything to release anything. So she told me, as my mother, she said, these are killing you. You're not taking them anymore. She took me to the doctor the next day, and the doctor took one look at me and said, give me the pills and throw them away. And he basically said, they're killing you. They didn't have any type of impact on the tumor. The tumor did not shrink whatsoever. The only thing that was shrinking was me. So the tumor was still intact, unbothered, but it was killing every other cell in my body and shutting down my organs in the process. But along with that, my hair began to fall out, break off, loss of weight. So when you're dealing with that, you have a lot of extra emotional things that come into play, because we as women, we take pride in how we look.
Yes, yes.
I was one that exercised every day. I would run on the treadmill every day. So this diagnosis was a shock to my family. No one in my family had dealt with anything like this before. As far as stomach cancer, there was no history of it. So even the doctors were shocked, trying to figure out where did it come from and how did someone my age end up with it, because that's another very rare thing. But the emotional side of it at that point, that's when it began to hit me emotionally, when I saw the physical effects of it. And that was before they even did the surgery to go in to remove the cancer. So I had to eat a little bit more, gain a little weight before they did the surgery, because they didn't want to do the surgery. They told me that because of my previous surgeries and my history, that I would actually die on the operating table. So I was basically at that point given the choice to just walk around with it in my body and wait for it to spread. They weren't sure how it was going to spread, how quickly it was going to spread, where it would spread to. They just knew that since my body had been through so much, that according to them, I was going to die on the operating table. And so my
Wow.
bet was to walk around with it. And just however long I lasted is however long I lasted. Luckily, I did not listen to them. I went and got another opinion. The reason they told me that I would die on the operating table is because I'm not sure if you've heard of a Whipple surgery, but that is where they would actually have to go in and move part of my stomach, part of my intestine, part of my spleen in order to get to it because of the location of the tumor. And with all of that going into account, take that into account with the fact that I had previous surgeries. I already had 3 previous major surgeries. They said there's no way you would survive that.
Oh, wow. Wow. Did you continue to work during, were you working during that time?
I was working off and on. I was working when I could, when I was not emotionally stable enough to work because of everything that was going on in my life. No one that I worked with knew what was going on. I was very private about that. So I'm sure, as you can imagine, people are very insensitive. People don't care. They just see the physical parts of what's going on with you, but they don't know where it's coming from or the emotional state that it's putting you in. And so when you're dealing with people, and that's just the world today, people don't care, people don't have empathy, people are very quick to jump to conclusions. So when I was at work, when I was working, I was dealing with people saying that I was bulimic, um, anorexic, because I was in the bathroom a lot. They didn't know that when I was go to the bathroom, I would go to the restroom to cry or go to the restroom to pray. They didn't care. So I would work off and on. There were several months in between going through this that I could not work. So when I would show up to work, sometimes I would come to work and I would only come back for 2 weeks at a time, and then I would be out again.
Oh, okay. Looking back, would you have done anything differently?
No, I don't think I would have done anything differently. I did everything that I knew at that point in my power to do, which was pray. I made sure that if I could have done something differently, I guess I would have put more faith into God as opposed to what the doctors were saying. But it's easier after the fact it's easier said than done when you're told from professionals, especially a room full of professionals. I had about 6 or 7 professional, the head
Mhm.
doctors come in and sit me down and tell me this, that I was going to die on the table. So at that point, you're not really thinking about God. You're thinking about the people that are in front of you telling you that you're going to die. So now that I look back on it, if there was anything that I could do differently, I would probably say that I would put more faith, have more faith into God having the last say as to the doctors having the last say. Had I done that, I would not have been as emotionally unstable as I was. The ups and downs, the constant ups and downs. One minute I'm okay, the next minute I'm completely not okay. Um, the the crying when no
Mhm.
one is
Mhm.
listening, the back and forth, keeping up the facade and having the plastic smile on my face, letting everyone else think, aside from me losing weight, they're thinking, okay, they don't know what's going on. But at the same time, that's something that I had to do in order for my daughter to not fully know what was going on.
Okay. What advice would you give to women who are going through this?
I would say don't give up. Don't listen to the first person that tells you that this is your diagnosis or this is the absolute outcome. No one knows the absolute outcome but God. He's the only one that knows the absolute outcome. As I stated earlier, I had 6 professionals, the head men in Texas, tell me that I was going to die on the table and that there's nothing they could do. They told me they would not touch me. They basically told me, they said, we are not going to touch you. And had I just listened to them and not gone on to
Mhm.
find other doctors and do my own research as far as other doctors that could do this without having to take so much out of my body, had I just listened to them, there's probably no telling where I would be at this point. I would still, I'm sure, have the cancer. It would probably have spread by this point, I'm sure, because that was about 5 years ago. So it most definitely would have spread. So I probably would not be here had I listened to them.
Mhm.
But because I listened to my instincts and I listened to God, and I went ahead and I went to another doctor. This particular doctor had a completely different outcome. As soon as he saw me and he saw my files, he said, I can do this. You'll be perfectly fine. He explained how he would be able to go in and do the surgery without removing part of my stomach, part of my spleen, he moved a small part of my intestine, but not the percentage of what the previous doctor said that they would have to take out. They would basically have to take out half of my insides. He did not do that. And he told me, and he set me down and told me how he would be able to go in to remove it. He also told me when I spoke to him that he wanted it out of me within 2 weeks. The other doctors were telling me that I was better off just living with it. They said you could live anywhere from 2 years to 20 years because they weren't sure, it was so rare, they weren't sure how quickly that it would grow. Whereas this particular doctor said, no, I want it out of you within 2 weeks. He said, what are they talking about? Who did you go to? So you can't just go to and listen to the first professional just because they have the word, doctor, and they go by professional doesn't mean that they know everything that they're talking about. You have to make sure that you do what's in the best interest for you and your body. Seek help other places, and pray. And again, had I listened to them, I
Mhm.
probably would have, if I would even be here, it would have spread all over my body by this time. But thankfully, I did not listen to them. So my advice to other women would be not just listen to the first doctor that tells you something, go to a second doctor. If that second
Mhm.
doctor isn't giving you any information that could help, go to a third doctor. There's always someone out there that is more knowledgeable and has more experience when it comes to certain things and can actually help you in a better way, better, more productive way.
How long have you been cancer free?
5 years.
Wow, that's a blessing.
It is.
You get your strength from.
I get my strength from my mother and my daughter.
Mhm.
That is where I get my strength from. And through them and through my daughter, looking in my daughter's eyes when I was going through this always reminded me that God is with me. There, He gives you certain things that you can look for or look to in life.
Mm-hmm.
Going through certain things, and we all go through, I don't want to go to church, I don't want to have anything to do with that. We all go through that, but He places certain people in your life as reminders that He is real, He is there, and to not give up. So my strength came completely from my daughter and completely from my mother, because when I looked at them, I saw nothing but hope. I was reassured that God is with me and I would be okay.
Okay. Is there anything you would like to add before we close?
Oh, it's very important to take care of your body.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect example. I took care of my body and still this happened to me. It can happen to anyone. There's no discrimination when it comes to cancer. Make sure that you get your mammograms. Listen to your body. If there's anything going on that may be seen even a little abnormal,
Mm-hmm.
just a little abnormal, get it checked. They say that you don't necessarily have to go get a colonoscopy until you're a certain age. I wasn't at that age when all of this took place. The only reason I found out about the cancer was because I passed out from a previous surgery that I had
Mm-hmm.
dealing with stomach issues. So everything that happened to me was blow after blow after blow, and the cancer was the last thing. But what I can say is everything that I went to led up to me being diagnosed with it. Because had I not gone through those previous surgeries and those previous mishaps, you could say, I wouldn't have found it and I would not have known to get it out. I wouldn't have known that it was there because it was in a place where no one could see it. They only discovered it because they went in with the camera through my throat to make sure that everything was okay from the
Okay.
previous surgery
Mm-hmm.
I found. So it was kind of an accident that they found it. When they were pulling the camera out, that's when the doctor said, wait a minute, what is that? That doesn't look right. And he went back in and took a biopsy, and that's when he found out that it was cancer. So
Mm-hmm.
had I not previously gone through everything that I had gone through, I would not have found out about the cancer and I would not be here today. So I say to women, take care of your bodies as best you can and make sure that you go get checked, because I didn't go get checked for things like that because I was too young. I didn't think,
Mm-hmm.
never any of those things never crossed my mind. I was too young. I didn't even fall into the category to have certain procedures done or certain tests done to see if this was going on. So anything that's going on with you, make sure that you get checked regularly, whether it's going to the gynecologist, go get your mammogram, getting a colonoscopy. I wouldn't say wait until you're 40 years old or 50 to start getting a colonoscopy. You can ask for these things beforehand. Get them done beforehand. You have a lot of people that are dying and being diagnosed with cancer,
Mm-hmm.
cervical cancers, colon cancer, breast cancer at a much younger rate than statistically you're supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So get yourself checked, take care of yourself, try to live as stress-free as possible. And I know trust me, I'm still living with stress, trying not to. So try to live as stress-free as you can, as much as that is in your power. Surround yourself with positive people. Do not surround yourself with negative people at all. If that means you have to cut certain people out of your life, cut them out of your life, because your well-being is more important
Yes.
than how many friends you have. And regardless of what the doctors say, continue to have faith, continue to read the Bible, because that is when I threw myself into the Bible. I basically immersed myself into the Word, and that is when certain revelations came. Certain
Mm-hmm.
things I went through in life, I started putting the pieces together and connecting the dots, and certain things in life just started making more sense. So my advice is to just take care of yourself, surround yourself with only positivity. If you have to cut out negative people, cut them out, because at the end of the day, I guarantee you those negative people are not going to be there to help you when you need them. when you need assistance getting up to go to the restroom. They're not going to be there. So surround yourself with positive people, positive thinking, which is another thing that's easier said than done. But immerse yourself in the word, put yourself in his hands. You have to basically step in order to get through anything.
All right, thank you. In closing, I would like to express my gratitude to you for being a part of this interview, and I really appreciate your transparency.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is Queenie Clem with Queenie's Book Talk and Reviews. Happy reading and bye.
Bye. Thank you.
If this interview today touches one's life and gives just one person the hope and strength that they need to fight cancer, then it was worth the effort. Please, like Monique said, go get help, go seek doctors. If it has to be 1, 2, or 3, do what you have to do to maintain a healthy body. And with that being said, take care. Bye.